What is the craziest thing that you found in the collection?
So I found $20 once. I think we all have. I have found hair. I have definitely processed collections where I have found like baby hair or like women's hair that was like in a ribbon. And I think it was, if I remember correctly, I think it was like a early 20th century collection. I think it is very common at that time to like send your sweetheart in the war a lock of your hair, and then the women would tie it in a ribbon. So I found that, and then I think I've also found like a little lock of like baby's hair, just like a little tiny lock of baby hair that was tied in a little ribbon. I think I think those are actually pretty standard. I think most archivists have those kinds of stories. The craziest thing I think I have found is a pipe. Once I found a pipe, like a smoking tobacco pipe, and I found the tobacco. So that was great. And I remember we tried to turn it into the supervisor, and at the time he was like, cool, I don't know what we're supposed to do with this, but I will figure it out. And just kind of sit it to the side and like, don't touch that. We'll figure it out.
What was the context? Did you ever figure out what the pipe was from or why it was in the collection?
I mean, it just belonged to the donor. It was just part of the donor. A situation in which like the family kind of like gathered up all the things in the office and all the things, out of their study and whatnot, and kind of donated it to the repository. And there was and maybe they just didn't go through it very carefully. It was an incredibly mixed materials collection between manuscript materials, photographic materials, print published book materials. There was a lot of things in there. And so as I'm just kind of going through the boxes, I found the pipe. And then as I kept going, maybe a box or two later, I found like a little baggie of the tobacco. And just like one of those little plastic baggies.
It's funny, I've never found a pipe, but I've certainly experienced where it's obvious they took whatever was on the desk.
Yes.
And it all went into the box.
Yes.
And you find all kinds of interesting things, sometimes eyeglasses or other personal materials or personal effects that they probably didn't mean to include, but the entire contents of the desk or the drawer or whatever it was.
They kind of just take the drawer and dump it into the banker's box. I think if anybody ever is watching this and they're like, oh, I have a family member and we're wondering about what we should do about their awesome materials, you should call us and we will be glad to help you. Call your local archivist, because it's not always necessarily about just dumping everything into the box. Contrary, I think, to popular belief, and let me know if you feel differently, but contrary to popular belief, archivists are the best weeders of anybody that I know. I think there's a misconception, or there's a public perception that archivists, we keep all the things, like we keep all the history, or librarian, like we keep all the stuff and we have our boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff, which is true, but that stuff is like meticulously curated. And I think any processing archivist has experience with whittling down a collection that might have started with 50 linear feet worth of boxes, but at the end of the day, you might have 40 feet or 35 feet. And so I think there's this public perception that we are like keepers of all the things, that we could just, if you donate it to your local library or historical society, then they just keep all the things. That's not true. Call us first. Because we will weed it and we will take out all the extra things, all of the like easily findable published materials, a lot of those personal effects, we will give it back to you. Like, we don't want it.
I completely agree with that, as we have to be really selective because you can't collect everything. It's just an impossible task. And so we become very good weeders. And I think sometimes it surprises folks, exactly as you said, that we are so efficient at it. Mm-hmm. We're very good at determining, all right, this is what we keep, this is what we don't.
Yeah,